Welcome to the second episode of our podcast series. Today, we will be exploring the journey of finding deeper meaning and purpose in our lives. I'm Parvati, your host for today. I'm a psychologist here at Innerspace Counseling, and today we have Sadia Saeed, a seasoned psychologist, the founder of Innerspace, and also a mindfulness trainer. She has over 2 decades of experience being in the space of counseling, and I'm sure she would have encountered numerous individuals who are going through this trouble finding meaning and purpose in their lives. And her knowledge of ancient wisdom, traditions, and mindfulness can help us look at this topic from a very deeper wisdom perspective, right? So, without further ado, Sadia, I'd like to go ahead with the first question, but let's welcome you first. Hi, Sadia.
Hi, Parvati.
Hi. Hi. So let's dive straight into the first question. And this is something many listeners and also just people in general struggle with, right? Every individual would have gone through this struggle with finding meaning in their lives, but sometimes it's a very temporary feeling, like a very transient feeling where they feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not feeling fulfilled in life or satisfied in life. And sometimes it translates to something huge, and it's like a lifelong quest for finding meaning. So, as a psychologist, what is something that you would what is some input that you would give to these individuals who are trying to differentiate between the two?
Yeah. As a psychologist, but also as somebody who has studied a lot of Indian philosophy in general, I think that gives a lot of weightage to meaning and purpose and these kind of questions.
Yeah.
I would say that mostly the advice is take it light.
Mm.
Don't hold on too strong to having a purpose, because purpose is a goalpost that is forever changing. There is
Hmm.
not necessarily going to be one purpose for all our lives.
Yeah.
There may be or there may not be. Some of us might just feel that there is a sense of purpose to my life, and some of us may have changing ideas. Right now it is raising my kids, right now it is studying, right now it is taking care of a parent who is aging. It
Hmm.
could be anything.
Right.
So the important thing I feel is to allow for these changing goalposts if they have to be. And there may be moments of not feeling that there is any purpose, or not feeling that I
Hmm.
have anything to hold on to, or any one thing that I'm doing. At that time, just being, enjoying is purposeful. Like this pressure of
Hmm.
having a purpose, otherwise I am wandering aimlessly in life. I
Yeah.
think it's too much of a pressure, and I don't think it's needed in the light of perpetually changing goalposts, in the light of not knowing how long we are going to live, in the
Yeah.
light of not knowing when we are going to be called upon to do what.
Yeah.
uh, you know it doesn't make sense to have this pressure. So that's what I feel, that it's better to let it be and
Hmm.
focus on knowing yourself better and just having a more peaceful time.
Right. Right. I really like how you pointed out how purpose keeps evolving, and there's always this quest of purpose that's just a part of life, right? I feel like this brings us to our second question because there is this pressure that we set, or a standard that we set for ourselves, right? This sort of I should be this way, and I should have done this by this time when it comes to purpose and chasing our dreams. While we are on this quest to find our purpose, there's also this added pressure and very opposing views that we encounter from relatives or family, friends, or just well-meaning well-wishers or whoever it is. But sometimes it can even hinder our growth, and when we are really trying to get down to our goals, this can often just stand in the way, right? So how can one just find a sweet spot trying to balance between these two expectations and these two pressures, right, while they're chasing their dreams?
I believe that the fundamental point that we all have to understand is neither our mind speaks the truth nor anybody else's mind speaks the truth. We are
Right.
operating from conditioned minds.
Yep.
Everybody's mind is conditioned,
Yeah.
and everybody's mind is conditioned by fear also. Fear is a
Yeah.
big part of our conditioning. So the fear is, if I don't do this, I'm not going to
Mm.
be enough. And the conditioning that comes from the social system, from your parents and all, comes from exactly the same spot. If my
Yeah.
child doesn't do this, if this person doesn't do this, it's not going to be enough.
Right.
But nobody sits and questions, we don't do it, why
Hmm.
is it not going to be enough? Who said that this has to be done? Why has
Right.
this to be done? In a very deep, I mean, as a very evolutional sense, this is coming from survival of the fittest. The
Yeah.
idea that you have to tick all these boxes to survive, to
Hmm.
be able to appear important to your social circle, to others in your group,
Hmm.
and in that sense be superior, and in that sense therefore be fit to survive. So I
Yeah.
have to achieve this because I have to appear like this, and only if I appear worthy will I survive. It's not true anymore. It's just
Hmm.
conditioned, it's just a tendency that is in the system. So somewhere one has to question this, one has to recognize that one can't fall for this kind of thinking, uh,
Hmm.
neither your own nor your parents. So it's not just your parents and your well wishers thinking that you need to kind of dispel, but even your
Yeah.
own thinking that I must do this, must achieve more than I feel like doing this. This seems the right thing to do at this time.
Hmm.
I would say go with that kind of an intuition rather than with what you must or have to do.
Yeah.
The other thing I also feel is that between what I want to do and what people want to do, there could be a conflict. And
Hmm.
their balance is crucial. Again, balance means that sometimes you might have to postpone what you need because something else, even you realize, is more important.
Hmm.
Like, let's say you want to go for something, a course, or let's say you want to go for a trek, and
Hmm.
then something else has come up, somebody has become sick at home, or something else came up at work which seems important, and you know that that's more important,
Right.
but you want to, so you kind of have to keep on balancing between what you want and what is needed. But
Hmm.
sometimes your parents will say things which are just traps, which will just hinder you, which will just hold you back, and you recognize that it is their fear and their conditioning, there's no reality to this.
Yeah.
And that time you have to break somebody's heart and move on. So sometimes your heart breaks and sometimes other people's heart breaks, but it's okay.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. So it's okay to let people down, and sometimes it's okay to let yourself also go and let your desires go also. So it's okay to do this. This sweet spot and everybody will be happy, I think, is not always possible.
Right. Right. That's very, interesting that you pointed out, like someone's heart is gonna get broken in some way or the other. Right. Yeah.
It can.
And
You have to be prepared for it. It can.
yeah, yeah. And it sounds like it. Like it there's no fair deal or, in this scenario, right? And what I really like that you pointed out is like a lot of times these well-meaning suggestions and advices also come from fears, right? Like this sort of survival backed instincts that people have. I feel like this really ties in with the next question that we have for today is about this fear of failure, right? For a lot of people, it's just like this little voice in their head, constantly reminding them that you could be goofing up this, right? For others, it could be like a crippling sense of fear, like very paralyzing sense of failing, like fear of failing, right? And for a lot of individuals, this is what stops them from pursuing what they want to in life. So if you were to encounter such an individual, what are some things that you would tell them? How would you encourage them to overcome this fear that they have?
I would actually ask them to introspect why they cannot fail, or why
Hmm.
should they not fail, or what
Right.
is the problem with failing. Because, very realistically speaking, failing is not just possible, failing is probable. You are
Mhm.
more likely to fail in life in something or the other. You can't be doing very well in everything in life. It's not possible.
True.
I always say in a class, there's a competitive class of 29, 30, 40 students, one person comes first.
Yeah.
Everybody else doesn't come first. So the probability that people will not come first is always higher
Hmm.
than the fact that you will come first, right? And you are
Yeah.
actually used to this all your life, in school, everywhere. Now the problem is you start making it all about your self-worth, because you
Hmm.
want, again, you have this idea in mind, I have to be this. Only
Hmm.
when I achieve this, when I look like this, when I make this kind of an appearance to others, will I get respect. This is all, we say khayali pulao, like we create all of this in our mind.
Yeah.
And then all of that turns against us and makes becomes a crippling anxiety. So the
Hmm.
more you invest in the achievement and say, I am worthy only if I achieve this,
Yeah.
the more you're going to have fear of failure,
Right. Right.
and the less likely that you will even start, and
Hmm.
therefore unlikely that you will achieve at anything at all.
Yeah.
Right, so it's a cycle. So only if you're ready to fail are you going to start,
Hmm.
and therefore there is any chance of achieving. So in order to achieve anything you have to be ready to not achieve it. It's a precursor to
Right.
achieving anything in life, right?
Yeah.
That if I want to achieve it, I have to be ready not to achieve it. Then only I can move towards it, because that chance is always there that I will not achieve it. That chance, that probability is always there. For every race that you run, for everything that you want, the probability that you won't get it is there.
Hmm.
Right?
Right.
So we have to have a better relationship with that probability. If that's an always intrinsic probability, no matter what you focus on in
Hmm.
life, then that then you have to have some relationship with that probability of failing.
Right.
Right? And not only is failure, I mean, we consider it to be bad, but I think failures, if we look back in our life, places where we've not done well, have
Yeah.
taught us, have helped us grow. We've become more creative. When there's an obstacle, when we don't do well, we find a way around it. We find another way. We do something different. We say, okay, this is not working, let's try this.
Hmm.
That's what actually makes us expand our horizons, broaden our perspective, grow as human beings. Failing is good. I mean, I don't know why we have given it such a bad rap, to be honest.
No. Maybe it's because of all those icky feelings that come up when you do. Like, as you said this, there were two things that came to my mind. Is just that, when we start doing something, when we get on the path of, you know, going after our goals, we always think of just winning and we think everything from that perspective and we don't entertain the thought of, okay, what if it doesn't work out, right? And then again, like it all goes down to that, I don't want to sit with this feeling of rejection and all that.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah.
very interesting how this just sort of that can change our perspective towards our goals and desires, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you have to prepare that there is intrinsically a possibility that this will not work, how much ever I may want it. Okay.
Yeah.
And also, another thing that I feel, Parvati, we have to realize is, in my short term vision, I must achieve this and this is good for me.
Hmm.
In the longer, stream of life, I don't even know if this is required for me. I
Yeah.
don't know. We
Yeah.
never know. And very often you will find in hindsight people saying, I was trying to apply for that and then I didn't get it. Thank God I didn't get it, because then I did
Yeah.
this, I did that.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that we have to see these things and lighten this whole idea that this is how it must go, this is how I should be, and give a
Yeah.
little more space to life in general to flow and do what it needs
Yeah.
and allow.
I feel like what you just said, just reminds me of this quote, right, which says that, rejection is never a rejection, it's a redirection. So there's no way we can actually know whether, it's a true rejection and, life is all
Yeah,
done and, you have nothing to do anymore in life. But it's always in hindsight we realize that, oh, it was for something else. Like there was something else
absolutely.
that was in store for me, right?
So that trust, I think we have to have in foresight so that we'll have some
Yeah.
relief. In hindsight, we'll figure it out, but now there's no way of figuring it out.
Mm.
So we have to have that faith. We have to go in with that trust and faith that if it works, wonderful, it's meant for me.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, okay, something else will come along. I'll try my best, and then that's it. I can only try my best,
Right.
but
Yeah.
that's it.
That's a very interesting take, Sadia. I feel like, this just I just want to digress a little, right? Like just move into this question of, something that I really encounter with a lot of people my age. We're usually on the brink of giving up, most of us, because, we're trying to find our own niche, our own space. Um, and I've seen a lot of people my age say that, what is the point of all this, right? Does this even matter in the grand scheme of things? Does life even matter? And these are like such nihilistic questions. And when you encounter that kind of question, you just fall into this form of thinking like, oh, this doesn't matter, then this goal doesn't matter, and that doesn't matter. What am I even doing, right? Um, and when you face that kind of question, what can one do to find purpose beyond ourselves? Like, what can we do to find purpose beyond oneself? Like, what would you say to that?
I would say that why should it matter so much whether you matter or not is something you have to contemplate.
Right.
because because
Yeah.
we are putting too much of an emphasis on mattering.
Yeah.
Okay, we are
Yeah.
putting too much an emphasis that I must matter, and
Yeah.
somehow it's part of our conditioning. I mean, that is what you matter. Do I matter to my parents when we are younger? Do I matter to my teacher? Do I matter in this classroom? Do I
Yeah.
matter? That question, in some sense or the other, has been with us all the time. We are forever checking with others to see, checking with our surroundings to see if we matter, if we
Yeah.
truly matter, if we
Yeah.
matter enough. And then all these judgments we make about how much we matter and how much we don't matter, and then we keep focusing on that. Okay, and see, as
Yeah.
children, what can you do? I mean, you can help children understand this to a little bit, of a little extent, but they play with others. There's conditioning in the whole environment. But
Yeah.
as adults, I feel it's time to really sit down and think, what does it even mean to matter? You've been given a set of genes, you've been given a set of qualities and environment. It's like you've been given a package, and now you must make with this package whatever you can make. Okay,
Hmm.
and even while you're making something out of this package, everything is not in your hands. There are factors that keep coming and keep changing
Yeah.
everything. Okay, there
Yeah.
is all this impermanence and all these factors that keep coming and intervening in the middle
Yeah.
of all this. A little human being in this wide world of billions of people, billions of species, is
Yeah.
trying, okay, to find a niche. How cute is that, and how silly is that? Like, it's like that.
Yeah.
you know so
Honestly.
it is, it's, you have to realize that, we become so much of a center of our worlds that we
Yeah.
lose focus on how many things are impacting us.
Right.
We lose focus on how many things are going on. And
Hmm.
I feel that it's very important to keep a balanced focus on the fact that how many things are out of control for everybody, not just for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so trying to find this absolutely unique niche, not be ordinary, not be regular, be extraordinary, this is all just pressure for no reason, no reason.
Yeah.
And because you're putting yourself in under so much pressure, you're going to lose heart, and you're going to feel, oh, what is the point of just being alive, and then what am I doing, and how does it matter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So usually I say, if the universe has created you in this form, it's because it needed you in this form.
Right.
It has no reason to create you like this if it doesn't need you like this. The universal intelligence that is letting the whole world run
Yeah.
is also created everything exactly as it needs to be. And so, if at all we have a purpose, I feel it is to manifest. We have been given a set of qualities. Just do what you can with it. Accepting that there are times will fail, things will work, things will not work. You do what you feel at this moment. I do fine.
Yeah.
Like Parvati does great at talking and hosting, and she's doing that. Great, that's purpose. That's good
Yeah.
purpose. That's one purpose. Another thing she does well is something else. Okay, do that.
Right.
So there's no reason to bind yourself in these thought processes, is what I'm saying.
Right. And this is something quite related to what I told someone very recently, is that, even the most like intelligent of scientists, who are controlling every aspect of an experiment, let's say a scientific experiment, they always leave a small percentage of, error. Like, you can make an error. You are human. It's okay. You should always leave some room for error to happen, right? It could be due to external factors, even if it's a lab experiment. There can be anything
Absolutely.
that can happen, right? So it's always sensible to, even then, not focus on the error and just do whatever you can in the 95% of what you can do. Right.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah. So I feel like this again ties us to another question, right? This is about the inner critic, and this comes up quite a lot, with individuals. And the thing is, either it is like a very helpful friend, like sometimes your inner critic tells you, you are not doing this the right way, let's try to change things up a little bit. And then for some people, the inner critic is like a very harsh, relentless, judgmental critic. And a lot of people, they just want to eliminate it out of their lives. They just don't want their inner critic, right? Um, as a psychologist, I'm sure you would have encountered individuals who struggle with this, right? What would you recommend that they do? Like, how can you silence this inner critic once and for all, if that's possible? Yeah.
No, I don't think silencing the inner critic is even a direction we need to take, because we need to
Yeah.
understand where this inner critic is coming from. And
Right.
it's coming essentially from our ability to discriminate.
Okay.
This food smells bad, so I'm not going to eat it. This smells right, so I'm going to eat it. This is an see very young, you have poorer discrimination. As you grow, your conditioning gets stronger, and children even eat dust,
Yeah.
right? So they have some discrimination. They also know what taste they like and they don't like, but then it grows with time. Okay, this seems bad, this seems good. This
Mm.
is bad, this is good. This person looked at me like that, maybe it means this person sounds friendly, maybe I should do this, maybe. So then it becomes refined, and it
Yeah.
becomes subtle and subtle and subtle, and it's just good intelligence, good discriminatory intelligence,
Mm.
which when allowed to move and become more and more focused on oneself and self obsessed, then starts to create trouble for you. So we don't
Right.
want to silence this discriminatory intelligence. It is essential for our survival,
Right.
right? A sense of genuine sense of fear when we are walking somewhere. Oh, I feel this place doesn't look safe, is a
Yeah.
good discriminatory intelligence to have, right? But the problem is, only it's the same thing that I always say. It's like the knife in the hands of a skillful person will cut vegetables, fruits, allow you to cook, and a knife in the hands of an unskillful person, a child, is going to cut you deep, and the sharper the
Right.
knife, the deeper the cut. Okay.
Oof. Okay.
So the mind is like that. It can be extremely useful and extremely harmful,
Right.
depending on how skillfully we know how to deal with our minds.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what has been all the time suggested by the sages and by the philosophers and by the enlightened beings all these years, and it's a very, very intelligent way of doing this, is don't fully believe in your mind. Don't believe in everything it says. And it's a practice. It's not, I know it and I can do it. It's a practice. It's a practice of watching your mind, taking
Mm.
in what is useful, leaving out what is not, taking in what is useful, leaving out what is not. So when we practice meditation, we are actually doing this practice. What we
Right.
are basically doing is allowing thoughts to come and go without investing in every thought that comes, without getting caught up. So we are essentially practicing disentangling our minds
Mm-hmm.
enough to be able to see thought has arisen, thought has gone.
Yeah.
When that distance is achieved, only then you are able to say, this thought is useful, this thought is not. This I can let go. Because now you know how to be the observer of your thoughts, and that faculty exists in all of us, the ability to observe our thoughts. The
Right.
inner critic dominates when we don't have this ability, this skillful ability to observe the mind, take what it says is useful, and leave what it says is not useful.
Mm.
This discernment we are not able to work with. So we take
Right.
everything the mind says as truthful, and the mind is, see, we all know there are thousand studies done on how irrational the mind can be,
Mm.
how biased it can be, right? The assimilation biases the mind has, the cognitive bias, we as psychologists, we've studied the cognitive biases the mind has, how it justifies things if it is related to you, how it projects things. So the mind is not uh, perceiving the truth. It is not a
Right.
faculty that perceives the truth or speaks the truth. However, it is required for us to live. So we'll have to therefore exercise some judgment in how much we believe or don't believe. But we
Right.
cannot exercise that judgment unless we have enough practice to do this. So I would say that this practice has to be built. If you are somebody who is facing a lot of inner critic talk,
Hmm.
please start to meditate and become mindful and become an observer of everything, including your thoughts. And when you achieve that distance, it will lose its ability to harm you. It cannot.
Right.
Because then you've become skillful with your mind. So you can't get harmed then with your mind.
Right. Right. And it's very interesting how, you know, it is now that we know that it's like a cognitive bias, it is like a, irrational pattern that our brain, puts up quite often. But then it's also intriguing how years ago, centuries ago, like a lot of sages knew this concept that our brain just lies to us. And, essentially what it does is that it protects us from certain things. Like that's the purpose. But over time, these tendencies go rogue, and then they just can, also be our worst enemy in many ways. So it's just intriguing how it was once upon a time known, and it's just now that we've given it names, and we've
Absolutely.
scientifically labeled it.
I think a lot more things were known which have become
Right.
unknown rather than the other way around. Like I think a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that was known has gotten lost rather than this new thing that we now know. So and I can understand that anybody who sits quietly, dedicates time and effort to understanding their mind will be able to see
Hmm.
this. It is
Hmm.
not something that requires like too much depth to see that my mind is lying. It
Right.
requires just a little bit of noticing your mind to realize that what is it even saying, you know. After
Yeah.
you meditate for a while and once you do this practice for a while, you get amused with the kind of things your mind says. You really start getting amused, like what are you even saying, like why
Yeah.
is this even important, so it is that easy actually to figure out how unskillfully we get entangled with the mind.
Yeah.
We just have to sit and watch. But yeah, that silence and that watching is required to do anything better. I mean, in any way to improve our relationship with our mind, that is required.
Yeah. I'm sure this question would have resonated, and even this answer as well, right? Like from a very wisdom perspective, but it really helped a lot of individuals sort of now look into what their inner critic is really saying to them. At one point, it's either that, oh, you're the best of the best, and then it's just like, oh, you are, good for nothing, and you just can't get things right, right? I feel like this just brings us to the next question we have from one of our subscribers, actually. So, as you may know, Sadia, and to some of our listeners, we have a very active YouTube community on our YouTube channel, right? And on a weekly basis, we post questions, and Sadia even answers a lot of the doubts that our subscribers have. So, since we are doing this podcast on, finding purpose, one of our subscribers asked a very layered but also a very important question. So, I'm just going to read it out to you, and I'd love to hear your take on this. So, okay, here's the question. I've been wondering about the difference between needs, desires, and sense of purpose. So he has defined needs as life necessities like food, money, connection, or age specific needs, and desires as wants, dreams, and what one envisions for oneself or the community around. So he has two questions. One is that, isn't this the purpose of life, right? Isn't just this the purpose of life? And the other one is, if purpose varies from individual to individual, how would one differentiate between purpose and everything else? So this is the question.
I would say that, like I said earlier, also that it's helpful not to define purpose too much. But if in a very
Yeah.
generic sense I put purpose, I would say purpose is manifesting your
Hmm.
qualities to the best of your potential at this
Yeah.
moment, given given that you are having enough space and you have enough allowance for such manifestation right now. If something else is
Yes.
required, then you do that. That's it. Then that's your purpose. So you manifest. And manifestation is not one thing. Manifestation can change depending on situation, what is being asked to you, what is being brought to you. So There's one principle of in the yoga philosophies, it's called, or one attitude with which you go through life, which is called dharma bhav. And dharma
Yes.
bhav is a sense of, not so much a sense of what I want and what I think, but more like what comes to me, what
Hmm.
skills I have inherently to be able to give to this, and what I can do for what is coming to me. So things come to me and I do my best.
Right.
And if you see purpose as that simple thing, then it can stay the same, it can change, it can be developing one product for the rest of your life, it could be doing many different things in the rest of your life, and all of it is purpose. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So very simply put, that is purpose. Now, in order to manifest such purpose, I think we have some needs. We'll need food, shelter, we need security, we need a few things that
Hmm.
help us to manifest this purpose. So those would be, I think, needs.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then desires could be related to the purpose, but desires are more, I feel, things that I want.
Hmm. Right. Right.
Okay, so I could say this is my purpose. So I want to do this. But in that I want, the moment I want comes, you have to be a little careful.
Hmm.
I want doesn't mean that you don't go ahead and try that. It
Yeah.
simply means that you try that with the understanding of it may work or it may not work.
Right.
Because
Right.
that is the truth with desires. They may work or they may not work.
Yeah.
They may work at a different time than you want, or you may get the result or you may not get the result, and that's the truth with all desires.
Hmm.
Purpose doesn't have this problem, because purpose is not about achieving one thing. Purpose is
Right.
about doing your best at this time, whatever you can do. So you're doing
Right.
your best, so then there is no trouble with purpose in that sense, if you keep purpose in a very wholesome, open, spacious understanding. But desire is a very specific idea. I want to
Hmm.
do this, I want to get this. So there you have to be careful that you could, I mean, it could totally be in tying up with your purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, like I let's say you have children to raise, and your purpose is that I want to raise good children, or your desire is I want to raise children who have a good sense of right and wrong, or I want to raise children who are able to stand up in this competitive world.
Yeah.
Then your purpose and desire are both aligned in some sense, but whether your children will turn out this way, I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know whether the children will, whether you will do your what you think is your best. I don't know. There may be
Yeah.
situations where you may not be able to give them attention. There may be other things that may come up. So as long as you keep desires a bit light, or
Hmm.
I mean, go with them, but hold them a bit light, I think you're doing fine. So
Right.
for desires, I feel you have to be a little careful.
Hmm.
That's how I see it.
Yeah. And is it also because, the ego also plays a huge role with our desire making? Like, there's just that thing that, oh, if it doesn't work out, then this means, oh, this is why I'm a failure, and all that just comes up,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely. Ego is the biggest culprit. Basically, ego is this one little, like I said, human being in a world of environment, winds and climate and weather and species and a thousand factors, trying to believe that the world centers around me.
Wow.
That is ego,
Right.
no? The sense that I have to do this. That
Yeah.
itself is a, that's why all the spiritual traditions will come down and say that this I-ness has to be held lightly. If you take
Right.
your I too seriously, then you're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah. And there's also the I-ness of others that we have to encounter, right? Like while we're also struggling with trying to, find some sort of like meaning with ourselves, with our ego, there's also this issue that we also have when we are trying to, incorporate others' egos into our perspective as well. Like this, this is exactly what our last question is for today, right? And it's really interesting that you brought it up, which is about finding external validation. Now, it can be important, right? Sometimes to seek approval from others, ask others questions, especially when you're getting started on something. But it can be very like we may not even notice it that we sort of start to center our decisions and our goals based on
Yeah.
what others think, right? So, in such situations, what is something that you would suggest? Like, do we really go after these, after external validation, or how can we find that sort of balance between not having to rely excessively on external validation?
See, again, like I said, we have to understand that in the evolutional trajectory, if we did not have approval from our fellow beings, from our tribe,
Right.
if we
Right.
were left out, we would get
Yeah.
attacked by wild animals and killed. So it was a survival
Yeah.
need to be approved. It's a
Right.
need for survival to be approved of, to be validated, to be
Yeah.
felt like, yeah, 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 they like me and they want me in the system,
Hmm.
you know. So that has continued. And today it is seen, this validation we seek in the form of people saying, praising us, etc. But
Right.
we have to understand, the more affected we get by validation and praise, the more affected we are going to get by criticism also.
Hmm.
There is, it is the same, it's exactly the same. If
Right.
validation touches us positively to this measure, criticism is going to hurt us to this measure.
Hmm.
It is
Right.
exactly the same. Okay.
Right.
And so I'm saying it is a natural tendency, which is fine. But again, if you have some skill with your mind, if you, then you will realize that now it's becoming too much. Now I'm
Hmm.
depending on this too much. I'm asking for too much. I need too
Right.
much reassurance to
Huh.
feel okay about myself.
Right.
Right? So when I need reassurance to feel okay about myself, my freedom is gone.
Hmm.
I am paying a cost for this validation, and the cost is freedom.
Right.
Because I'm not going to be free to do things which are not validated then, even if I feel that they are right. So it's a trap. It's a natural evolutional tendency, but it's nevertheless it can be a trap. Beyond
Right.
a point, too much of it is a trap. So again, it is a skill of the mind to recognize how much validation I need, to come back to baseline and kind of say, okay, this is enough. I don't want to seek any more of this.
Right.
Okay, and also slowly, if you see people who really are, wise and who have worked with their mind, you will say that they react to praise and criticism both very lightly. Even if you say, oh,
Yeah.
you're great, you're great, you're great, they're like, ठीक है. Because they realize that it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't
Right.
mean much. I'm just doing what I'm doing, and people are thinking what they're thinking, and none of this is so important.
Right.
So again and again, I keep coming to one thing, which is, this is what I have understood as a psychologist, that unless you develop the faculty of observing your mind,
Hmm.
working with it, knowing it deeply, knowing its defenses, knowing when to disengage, knowing how to disengage, that you have
Right.
enough practice in your system to be able to do this, everything else is just talk. It's not going to shift things. Only
Yeah.
practice is going to make a difference, where you really learn how to work with your mind. Only
Yeah.
that can make a difference.
Yeah.
And that
And
is
the thing
also a
is,
long process. It's not a quick fix. It's a long process of
yeah.
slow layers and layers of defenses and evolutional conditioning coming down and layers peeling off. So it's a process, but it's a
Right.
worthy process. Uh,
Right.
to live a happy life, it's a worthy process.
Right. And I feel like this is precisely the point of our podcast, right? We believe that meditation is all about just sitting with yourself quietly for some time, but there's just so much that starts opening up when you just do and when you just be with yourself, right? It's so difficult. It's so easy to say, but it's so difficult to do, right? And even approaching just life in general with such depth can really open up a lot of wisdom, right? We
It
generally
can
tend to
change
see,
how you live. It can just change
yeah,
your life. That's it. It can change how you
absolutely,
live.
yeah. And that's the thing, right? With purpose, it's such an important topic, right? Because it just ties to everything that we do, right? Everything is tied down to purpose. And when we take purpose very lightly, and when we just see it as just something that we do in life, it just turns into a lot of like negative thinking later on when when you don't end up achieving what you want, right? So this is really insightful, Sadia. All of these conversations, it really helps us look at things differently. It helps us build a lot of insight, and wisdom in general, right, about these things. And before we wrap up our conversation, it would be really helpful if you could impart some sort of words of encouragement or wisdom that you have experienced, like from your experience, about this topic, about purpose and related things related to that. If anything you could give to our listeners will be amazing.
Yeah, no, I would just reiterate what I said, that
Yeah.
we have to take ourselves a bit lightly and stop taking ourselves super seriously. We were never meant to, I think, take ourselves super seriously. We just
Yeah.
created a lot of I-ness and decided to take ourselves very seriously. So relax a bit. You don't have to get everything. You don't have to reach everywhere.
Yeah.
Just have a better time being yourself. It's there's a very beautiful way in which Ramana Maharishi put it. He said, if a passenger climbs a train
Yeah.
and then carries the baggage on his own bags on his head, and then
Hmm.
gets exhausted carrying those bags, it's up to the passenger. I mean, the passenger is being silly because the train is going, the bags are going with the train, the passenger is also going with the train. So keep your bags down. If you're in a
Correct.
train, you have to trust the train to carry you and your bags. You don't have to carry your own bags. So keep your bags
Right.
down. uh, all of this pressure and baggage of purpose and baggage of meaning, to keep it down. Life is taking
Yeah.
you a certain way. It is life's job to take you. It will keep putting new things in your way. Challenge, you might see them as challenges, we might see them as obstacles, we might see them as opportunities, we might see them as blocks, but that's how
Yeah.
we see them. We are getting what we need, and we just have to manifest given what we are getting. And it's
Right.
a continuous give and take with life, that life is anyway about. Every new situation comes in, what we do with it to the best of our capacity, then we move on. So I think if we can live a little bit with this kind of a lightness and this kind of an openness and allowing, instead of making it all about ourselves and that we have to do it and making that very hard for ourselves,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think we'll all have a more peaceful time and actually have more energy left to do what is needed.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. It feels like this whole I-ness is very exhausting,
Very.
right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is very. It weighs you down. It's very exhausting.
Thank you so much, Sadia. This really means a lot. And I'm sure our listeners would have, really taken back a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge from this conversation. I hope so. And really, thank you so much, Sadia, and to all our listeners tuning in today. Thank you so much, and hope to see you on another episode of our podcast series. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Parvati, for being such an insightful and gracious host.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right.
Bye.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.